We now return to the Park Shore Coin and Collectibles Hour on Fox Sports Radio. And now, your host, Scott Heiligman.
Welcome back to the Park Shore Coin and Collectibles Hour. We're back in the studio with Scott Heiligman. Hey, Scott.
Hey.
We're picking up our conversation where we left off in the last half hour.
Oh, wonderful.
So, you know what? We're going to take this next part of the show and talk about some of the great listeners that we have. And a lot of these people follow us week to week, and eventually they reach out to us. Don't be afraid if you've got a question about collectibles. Send Scott a text or an email. Again, we might use it on the show. We have one. It's actually from Tony from Naples. And this is what Tony, and I don't know whether Tony is Tony male, Tony female. I don't know. Anyway,
Tony
from Naples. It says, Scott, can I text you several pictures of baseball cards that I've had since childhood? Most are not graded. So he or she realizes that grading is a big deal, but it's expensive. Can you email me an estimate?
Yeah, we should definitely do that. Yeah, that's a wonderful way to do it on baseball cards.
Yeah.
Yep.
And remember that grading is a variable thing, too.
Yeah, most cards aren't even worth grading that the average Joe has.
Right.
Or Tony in this case.
And I'm betting if Tony listened to past shows, Scott, that's what he or she's asking about. Is it worth my trouble? And that's where you come in.
That's where I come in. Yeah, that's where you bring them in for a professional opinion, you know. And a lot of times I don't even grade them. I just put them back on the retail market and sell them. Mm-hmm. Grading is for usually higher end cards, old vintage cards. But depending on how old Tony's cards are, I'll see when he texts them. Yeah. But we're looking for cards from the 50s and 60s. Okay. There's not many from the 70s, 80s, and 90s that are worth a whole lot of money. Okay. You know, that people have been collecting for years.
Right.
You know.
Right. So you know how we talk about coins, especially silver coins pre-1964, same way with baseball cards. You're saying prior to 1970. So really from the 60s or 50s beyond earlier.
Yeah, I would say that's about right.
Yeah, that's where the most are. And I know from a couple of shows we did back.
That's why there's so few exist. You know, that's why they're valuable.
Yeah.
Because very few made it through the run.
Right.
And came out the other end. When they started making them in the 80s, and they made 3 million of every card. Yeah. Many came out the other end in mint condition. Yeah. Or near mint condition. So it didn't really do a whole lot for the value. Collectability is supply and demand.
Right. Now,
so if you're going to supply 3 million, it's going to be more than the demand. Now that's why grading is important, because why does a 10? Well, yeah, very few are gem minted 10s, and those will sell for a few $100s. Mm-hmm. So you will see a random card that's worth 4 cents from the 80s and 90s sell for $300. That's because it was a gem mint 10, and maybe it was the first one ever in gem mint 10 for that card, because nobody wasted their time or money grading that player because they were just so nondescript. Right. So that's why it's so hard to navigate through all that,
right?
Yourself. So take pictures front and back so I can see the card number, and then I can see who it is, and then I can grade a lot about the condition right on the back of the card right there, and I'll give you a very good idea if it's going to be worth bringing it in or not.
And thinking back to, I think it was a show we did maybe in March or February, you had a listener, kind of the same question, and what you told the listener, if I remember right, was two things that go in your favor too is the person a Hall of Famer?
That's the first step, yep.
And are they, unfortunately this is a little morbid, but are they still alive?
That's a more important one.
I remember that discussion.
Well, right, cards will always go up in value after the person's no longer with us.
Right.
And Hall of Famers are the most high demand. Sure. Because they're good.
That's what you're looking for.
It's really that simple.
And you told us too, I think if I remember, that there's a lot of buyers out there that don't want a graded card. They want something that's not graded.
Something they can touch. Yeah.
Something they can touch. Because they put those things in those binding plastic holders, and you never touch it. It's just something to look at if it's been graded. But
and the slabs.
Yeah, and the slabs. Yeah, there you go. There's the terminology. I should know that terminology.
Well, because the other ones have flip page, because there are there's those books where you can put the cards in and flip through. Yeah. Those are pages, those plastic pages.
Do you see people come in with those, with the whole book?
Every week.
Man, and I know that there are some things where it's just volume and it's so expensive to ship that it's just not worth the time to have a big box of 1992 Fleers.
No, I think 10,000 cards sell for about $10 you have to bring it to a card show, though.
Right.
Where there's actual card dealers.
Right.
And that's kind of the number they use.
Yeah.
So if you have 100,000 cards, you might, come out with a few $100.
Right.
But that is the junk era.
Right.
Some people do have that. An entire storage facility will be full of, that'll be about 100,000 cards.
Wow.
And they're worth much less than 1 penny each.
Right.
If you have the 80s and 90s. Now, is there a Michael Jordan basketball card rookie in there? Of course. So not there's always exceptions to the rule, but 99% of the people, if you don't know what you have and you just know you have a bunch of 90s cards and 80s cards, you probably don't have the Jordan Flair rookie card from 1986.
So if you're listening to us and you're spending $250 a month on a storage 10 by 10,
look for the Jordan
and
basketball.
It's full of boxes. Go through it.
That's the other thing. You got to go through it, though. I mean, we don't buy the things just by, hey, you have 100,000 cards. The cards have to be sifted through, see what you have. And so while you're doing that, just like anything, you have to sell, you have to tell people what you have if you're going to sell it. So someone's got to get to the bottom of that. And the only way to do that is by going through it. So
that's manpower.
That's a lot of brain power too.
Yeah.
And
I'd be afraid I'd miss something important, having that many cards, having to sift through them.
well, if you have a few random basketball cards in there, then yeah, you might be, wow, do I have that Jordan rookie card in there? But I mean, if you have a bunch of 1992 Donruss football and baseball or whatever, not a Jordan rookie is going to pop in there.
Right.
You know, so you got to look at the collection.
Right.
That goes to say with everything. With coins, you can kind of get a nice idea of what the collection's like just by a few items.
Yeah. And you can tell when you visit, say you do a house call, when you visit someone and you see the type of coins, for instance, or the type of baseball cards they collected, you can see where their minds, even if someone's inherited, you can kind of see a pattern.
What type of collector they are.
What type of collector. And sometimes they weren't afraid to invest in higher end coins or baseball
And
cards.
sometimes they were incredibly cheap.
Yeah.
And they only got the really cheap stuff.
Right.
And the inexpensive things then, because I thought that was, I've even been guilty of that. Buying baseball, when I was collecting, I'd buy all the wrong ones. I think because I spent $20, it was a smart decision.
Right.
But the card ended up being worth $1, and just because it was graded. So it's not always,
Not always in your favor.
No.
No. Well, another listener, as we're on this topic, and I did promise that this part of the show we'd listen to listeners' comments, view listeners' comments, is Brenda from Fort Myers.
Hey.
And he says, hey, Scott, can you come? She's obviously listened to the show because she probably knows the answer to this question already. Can you come to my house in Fiddlesticks?
Wow.
Now, if anybody lives in Fiddlesticks, and there's a Brenda there, it could be Brenda. Brenda in Fiddlesticks in Fort Myers to see several pieces of sterling, silver, and jewelry. Some pieces, and jewelry, some of the pieces of jewelry are platinum. Do you buy platinum?
Yeah, platinum's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people platinum prices are very low right now for whatever reason. The whole market's just kind of low and slumping right now. Platinum's great.
Yeah.
But I tell people that, like, if you have 14 karat gold, that's worth more than platinum.
Oh, okay.
Believe it or not, because platinum, last time I checked, was about $850 an ounce.
Really?
And so if gold is, for all intents and purposes, $1,800 an ounce, and 14 carats, 58% of that, you're over $900 worth of gold for, an ounce.
Right.
So, but platinum's great. Just don't confuse it with white gold, too. Sometimes it's a good mistake.
Yeah.
So if you have 14 karat white gold, you're better off having that than platinum as far as raw material price.
Okay.
But I love platinum. It's very collectible, high demand, too.
Yeah.
For sure.
There are buyers for platinum.
Yep.
Absolutely. So thinking about this, you just opened up a little door. If you have white gold, silver, platinum, but we're talking about gold right now with this question from Brenda. We're expanding on this. And it may be worn, and you may not see a carat mark on it, whether it's 14, 18, 22, whatever. It doesn't mean it doesn't have a certain amount of gold in it, whether it's white or yellow. You still need to let Scott take a look at it. He's got the equipment to test it.
I put about 3 tests on it, Even I don't have one true test that I can really use.
Right.
So it'll be very difficult for a customer just to be able to, look at an item. Obviously, the magnet test is a great one, but a lot of people don't have a really strong magnet, and a lot of fake gold doesn't stick to magnets anyway.
Right.
So, you got to test it. You got to know it.
You told us a story.
That's why you bring it in.
A story a few months ago in a show that I was fascinated with, and I still think about it because it's a visualization thing. It's theater of the mind here. You said that you can take a tray of junk jewelry. You look at it and go, I don't know what's valuable here. There's 500 pieces.
Yep.
And take a strong enough magnet.
Oh, yeah.
And go over that jewelry, and it will give you an idea of what's not valuable and what might be
Oh,
valuable.
for sure. It'll weed out the bad stuff.
Weed out the
they're
bad
not-
stuff.
Yeah, for sure. All
That's
the non-precious
fascinating.
metals will stick to it.
Yeah.
So
And
that's
somebody can do that at their home if they have a strong enough
if they have a
magnet.
strong enough magnet. Yeah.
Huh. That's interesting.
Oh, no doubt.
Rather than go over it 500 pieces, piece by piece by
That's
piece.
yeah, it's very.
Let's cut to the chase. And
Oh,
cut-
for sure.
Get rid of about
If it's
3/4
like
of
in
this right
bags,
now.
yeah, that's what we do.
Yeah.
For sure.
Find out what's what, what's a prospect and what's a suspect here. I think that's fantastic. But anyway, that expanded on Brenda's question from Fiddlesticks in Fort Myers.
Yep.
Hopefully that helped you, Brenda. And reach out to Scott and set up an
Yeah,
appointment because he will come to your house.
And then the personal call with the Tiffany, we also do free jewelry cleaning the same day. So the people just want to bring it in, we have the jewelry, equipment. Because before I buy stuff anyway, like diamonds, it has to be cleaned anyway.
Sure.
So you get a good look at it.
Yeah.
So yeah, just stop on in. If you want to bring your lady out for the weekend and clean her jewelry first and want to get it looking all good,
Yeah. But you
only
just tou-
takes 5 minutes.
You just touched on something that we haven't talked about in this show, and that's diamonds, because you see a lot of jewelry.
A lot of
We've
jewelry.
been talking about gold, and we've had a couple of listeners asked about bringing you jewelry or having you come and look at jewelry. They talked about gold and silver. In some of those gold pieces, you do see diamonds.
Oh yeah. Daily comes in.
Yeah,
Diamonds are great.
yeah.
We buy them. It's a very moving market. Keeps going up and up with inflation as well. So they're becoming more and more expensive.
So what you're saying is diamonds are not only a girl's best friend, but they can be Scott's best
My
friend.
best friend too. Park Shore Coin's best friend.
Park Shore Coins. Park Shore Coins.
And a lot of
best friend.
people's best friend. Yeah.
Well, now when somebody has a diamond, you have to sometimes take it out of the setting, right?
A lot of times, yeah.
Yeah.
If you
To
wanna
get
keep it
a
in there.
true measurement.
But a lot of times they have paperwork on it. So if it's a GIA certified stone, you don't need. It's already measured for you.
Right,
So that's why a lot of that stuff's important.
right. So if,
And you can gauge by looking, but yeah, a lot of times you do have to pop it out.
Yeah.
But if it's in a beautiful ring in a setting, I mean, that costs several $100s to reset it, and you can damage a ring pulling it out too, a stone. So you got to be very careful who
Yeah.
you do. Yeah.
yeah. So, okay, that
But to get
answers
the colors, the most important one is very difficult to do in a setting. You can get a color, you can get a clarity, and a pretty close estimate on the
Right.
size. But like I said, if you're not putting on a scale, it's really hard to eye, especially something so small as a diamond.
Right,
So we like to pluck it out. We know how to do it, and then we throw it on the. But only make sure you tell us that you're selling, though. If you're not selling and you're just coming for prices, which is fine, to realize you're not going to get a very good bid on the diamond ring until you're ready to sell, because it does have to be taken out.
right. You made a
On big items like that, I mean, that'd be crazy not to.
you made a side comment with that last response. I think it was to Brenda, is if you've got the original paperwork, that it helps a great deal. The boxes that it came
Somewhat.
in.
Oh, yeah, and the Tiffany on that stuff. But the
Yeah.
original paperwork, a lot of times on jewelry, is just an appraisal
All right.
from the jewelry store, which means very little to
Right,
nothing.
right.
They will put a color clarity cut on a diamond that's completely 2 grades off. And so, you just, unless it's GIA, which is the standard.
Scott, do you have people that come in and say, well, here's a diamond ring and here's an appraisal, but you look at it and you go, hey, that's an insurance appraisal.
Yeah, it happened yesterday.
That's not gonna, yeah,
Well, it's an appraisal. They're meant for insurance purposes.
right,
They're meant for premium reasons, replacement value to say, hey, insurance company, this ring was $2,900 according to the appraiser. When that appraiser, a lot of times the jewelry stores is going to get the check
right.
from the insurance company if that item gets lost. So they're incentivized. The insurance company's incentivized because they get a higher premium, the higher that value is. Somebody brought in an item the other day, and I wouldn't even make a bid on it because I was the first place she brought it, and she brought in the appraisal, and it said $2,950 on it. And this is an item that I'd probably, when my auction gets up and running, would sell for between $175 and $225.
Right.
And so I said, she's like, well, what would you buy it for? I'm like, I don't want to offend you. I don't want to make a bid on it. You're at the beginning stages of learning what this is worth. I just wouldn't be able to make a bid because it's nowhere near. So I asked her, I'm like, what do you want to get out of this? And she said, between $2,000 and $2,500, because it said $2,900 on the appraisal sheet.
Right.
I mean, yeah, so that's an expectation of a customer not really knowing what they have, what things are worth, and that's going to take her going to 3 places, maybe just 2, because once I told her that's $150, $200, but I wouldn't make a bid because she'll just get mad,
Sure.
But she got the idea that
Yeah.
she was overvaluing it.
Yeah.
And I said, bring it somewhere else to a jewelry store and see what they would, and we'll go from there. Then I'll buy it once you have your expectations curved.
Right, right.
I don't want to be the one buying it for $150 when it says 3,000 on there if she hasn't brought it anywhere else.
Right. That's
So
why.
when she goes and gets offered $85 somewhere else, then she'll come back.
Yeah.
Because it literally weighed 1 gram.
Yeah, that's not much.
Yeah, maybe 1.5 grams because it had a big, no, was not much. It was tough. $29.95 is what it said on the appraisal.
Well, sure, inflated, like you said.
Well,
There's so many people in that loop that they just inflate it.
And it's just printed on a piece of paper, just any old appraiser, just 2 minutes.
Right.
I don't even think that one would be accepted by insurance companies.
They put a stamp on it and sign it like it's official.
Yeah.
You probably
that's exactly
have seen
right.
that, yeah.
You see it in sports memorabilia a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, one of my biggest mistakes I made was buying a DiMaggio and Mantle autograph picture that had the stamp, it had a hologram, it had the description on the back, the whole 9 yards. But it wasn't one of the big 2 or the big 3 companies that I now only deal with, or I will only buy if they're JSA, Beckett, or PSA authenticated.
Right.
Okay, and that's just how it goes with autographs. All those other ones, no matter how fancy they were, even if they were from the 2000s,
Yeah.
And a hologram, I guess, went a long way back then.
Right. Those
They're not hard to fake,
Yeah. It's called a POA. Is that correct?
COA.
COA, I'm sorry, COA.
Certificate of Authentication.
Right, right. And those can be forged
They're
or made up.
They're
I guess.
actually real from that company.
Right.
It's the company whose credibility is on the line.
Right, right.
I can write a COA saying, hey, this is a autographed Vander Holyfield, but who cares what Park Shore Coin thinks?
Right.
You want an expert who knows Vander Holyfield's autograph.
Right.
It brings us to these balls that I bought in a house call. We got a Harlem Killebrew, a George Brett, we got a Lou Brock, and, like items like this, it's like, well, do you bring them in? Do you spend $50 on each one to get them authenticated? Because if you do sell these online, you do need to have the JSA or the PSA authentication. But a Harlem Killebrew, sign, this is a beautiful ball, but without somebody saying, hey, he really signed this, it really isn't that hard for someone to fake autographs, especially if you can get $50 for it.
Right.
A lot of times people do a lot worse things to make a lot less money in 1 minute than just signing a baseball, So, those things sell for $50 to $150, but it costs $75 to authenticate.
Right.
So you might have a $199 ball there once it's authenticated, but as it sits like that,
Did these come
they're
from the
very
same?
tough. It's the same
same
person,
client?
yeah, and he, and even if they have a great story behind it, like they're, worked for the Yankees or this or that, or their friend worked for the Yankees, that still doesn't matter. I've had autographed baseballs come in from the Mantle Foundation that were even supposedly handed from Mickey's son to this individual.
Right.
That came back not real,
Wow.
and this individual had 9 other items, all came back real.
Okay.
The one item that was fake, and he got them all from the same place. Being a member of that, and the one thing that was fake was the mantle.
Yeah.
And those are the high dollar items. Those are ones that are worth $500 to $1,000. The smaller ones, probably less likely to find a fake Harlem Killebrew or a Lou Brock autograph ball. No question about it.
And the demand is there. Somebody really wants them. They're going to pay for them.
Yeah, they'll pay for them. They're
sure.
cool balls. I mean, there's a lot of fans. I mean, the value's there.
Yeah.
He's one of the Twins' all-time greats. Harlem Killebrew, no doubt about it.
If this were authenticated, a Harlem Killebrew ball would sell for what?
I think $200.
$100. And what
Maybe
do you got
just
here?
1 to 200. We got
Is that Lou Brock?
Yeah,
What would a Lou Brock sell for?
75
75?
to 100.
And what is this?
That's a George Brett. Is he alive?
Yes.
I don't know if it even sell. No, I'm just kidding, George. Probably $50.
He's a Hall of Famer. Yeah.
He's a great player.
Yeah. George Brett. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So,
but he's played in the 80s. These other ones are from the 60s. But they're all Hall of Famers.
yeah.
And they come in those fancy boxes they came in?
Yeah.
They look like they'd be official, right?
Yeah.
They look like they'd never be forged.
Yeah.
But if you're going to forge them, you're going to make them look like that.
Why wouldn't you spend a couple of dollars on a plastic box?
We'll show it on the YouTube, they come in these nice boxes.
Show them the
Ball Cube ink.
yeah.
If you're out there, I'm sure you guys are very reputable, but I can't do anything with them until JSA stamps them.
show them the final product. There
Oh
you
yeah,
go.
here's the final product.
There's what it looks like in the box.
That's it. That's
There you go.
Killebrew. I mean, it looks great.
I've seen some Harmon Killebrew
Me too.
signatures, and
It's
that
the
looks pretty
same-
close.
It is close. I'm sure
Yeah.
it is real. But the end user, The problem I run into, the person who's buying it for me,
Yeah.
because I'm not going to keep that to hold on to for the rest of my life.
Right.
I'm here to, make money and resell things and put it back on the market for people to enjoy.
Yeah.
I'm a high-end recycler.
High-end recycler. I
Yeah,
love
and
that.
so it's just another thing that comes into play, and then all the time that goes into it of having to send it in and getting graded and
Yeah.
shipping it.
Yeah.
But they are turning it over in like a week or two, which is really nice.
That's nice.
So you don't have to wait like the baseball cards. Autographs, yeah, they whip through them.
Yeah.
Takes them literally a minute.
When you explained
Professionals.
this, when you made that house call and you explained to the person that owned these, when you negotiated a price,
Chuck
were,
is the name,
were
right?
they acceptable?
Yeah, he was very acceptable.
He understood where you stand.
Well, actually, we had talked on the phone prior, and he had told me what he had. So I actually told him to go get the things authenticated by JSA because he had some. He was an older fella, and he thought he had some DiMaggios and Mantles that just didn't end up being in there. He might have another box that he didn't know where it was.
Sure.
But he did call, and he's like, I don't want to pay $75 a ball. And I'm like, that's the point.
Yeah.
Neither do I when the ball ended up being worth. And then if it's fake, you need to pay the 75,
still have to
and
pay
then
it.
you don't even get the ball.
Okay.
So that's the problem for me. Like then I end up losing 75.
Right.
So it's not really worth shelling out 75 plus buying the ball from them for 35, 40 bucks. So now I'm 120 into it.
Yeah. Listen,
But it's a cool item. Once we have an auction,
Yeah.
then we can have it at our store and people can come look at it
Right.
and they can bid on it.
For those of you
You
that are
know?
listening, this is some of the trials and tribulations that Scott has to go through.
Yeah.
So
it's a
keep it in
second-
mind.
Yeah.
You can actually help yourself by helping him by authenticating or understanding his dilemma at Park Shore Coin and Collectibles, what he might go through.
Lots of different people too. A lot of different personalities walk through that door.
Yeah.
That's not so easy either, especially nowadays and then when people are selling their stuff, a lot of times they don't want to sell it.
Right.
You know, they've come on hard times or they're moving or they're going, this is stuff from their ex-husband 4 years ago who's passed away and they've held on to it for 5 years and now it's time to get rid of it.
Right.
A lot of that too. So very emotional. A lot of people, a lot of times they think it's worth more, so that can create issues. And so it's you got to work through a lot of things.
Yeah.
And then you got people trying to sell you fake stuff too. And then you got great customers who realize they want to make a few bucks and they want Park Shore Coin to be able to make a few to be around,
Right.
Some people don't like at all if somebody's making $1 off their items.
Yeah.
That's just how they are. They want, if their item's worth $100, they want $100.
Yeah.
Period. And you'll see it on the Pawn Store show all the time. You'll say they'll bring it in and they'll say, well, I want $500 for it. And then Rick will bring in an expert and say, well, this is really worth $2,500. And the person will say, well, I want $2,500 now. It's like you came in for $500. They said it's worth $25. And the normal person will be like, all right, can we maybe do $1,000?
Yeah.
Right? That sounds fair. Or $1,500, Rick.
Yeah.
Now you want the whole kit and caboodle? You want the whole $2,500. And this is about 10, 15, 20% of the population, sadly.
So you're
So
dealing
I
with
have
that
to deal
type
with,
of person.
course.
too.
What do you think?
Yeah.
Of course, all day. I mean, it's just like, but it is what it is. You have to explain to them in the most proper way,
Sure.
and then they get the idea.
Well, you're very cordial, a very good person, and you get a lot of people think very highly of you.
Well, thank
So
you.
I'm sure you deal with them in the
Great
most
Google reviews, customer reviews. They look on our
good
website.
way. Yeah.
We'll
yeah.
always have that.
Well, as we're talking about listeners and their comments, I've got another one here. This is going to be really the last one we do for the show. And this is David from Estero. And it says, Scott, I have several antique, it says paper money.
Oh yeah, paper
Paper
currency
money.
is great.
Paper currency. He didn't say currency, paper money. Instead of bringing them to your office, can we set an appointment for an evaluation at my home? Question mark.
Oh yeah, that'd be wonderful.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's money in paper in currency.
Oh, absolutely. There's some really valuable old notes. Like I said, comes on to condition a lot of times.
Right.
You're going to want mint condition notes. And that's, red seal is when they kind of begin to be collectible. So red seal notes and backs, which is, I believe, the early 70s. So if you have those $2 bills that have the green seal on them, those really aren't collectible yet. But paper money can be very, very good. That's another item that they can look very valuable. A perfect example is a silver certificate. It's got a blue seal on it. It says exchange this for silver. They're made in the 30s, 40s, and 50s. It's got George Washington on them. They say $1 silver certificate. I mean, these things sell for 20% premium over $1 if they're in rough shape. $1.25, $2.
Right.
They look incredibly valuable.
Right.
That's a big one when people bring in, they save it for the last, thinking it's like the valuable stuff.
Right.
And it's like, no, this paper money is basically,
Yeah.
I give them a good amount for it, but it's not worth as much as they think.
Yeah.
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 Unless they're in pristine mint condition, because very few people just kind of keep them in envelopes and they're ripped and, all that good stuff.
Now,
So-
let me ask you, Scott, as far as currency, is it a little bit like with coinage in that so many are printed? Condition, like you said, is
100%.
important, but it's age, it's the number of printing, where it was printed, so it's a little bit like,
There's different reserves that they were printed at.
Okay.
That's what they're called.
Okay.
Mint reserves. On top of that, there's different signatures on them,
Okay.
which become collectible. The treasurer,
Okay.
whoever's in charge of the treasury, there's always 2 signatures on there. So those become collectible.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
because there's a combo of 2. And so they interchange them with different mint directors.
Yeah.
And so sometimes there's very few in there and they become very, very valuable.
Yeah. Now, we see coins that come from San Francisco, Denver,
Philadelphia, Carson City.
Now, they didn't print paper in Carson City, did they?
I don't believe not, no.
No. That would be something, because Carson City printed coins have a premium or bring a
Right.
premium,
Big time.
big time. So if you see a CC on,
Oh,
it's
that
not
Park Shore
Chanel,
coin.
it's your coin.
That's right.
It's Carson City. Bring it in, Scott. Let him have a look at
Yeah,
it.
exactly. On the back of your Morgan dollar, it's not a Chanel coin.
Not a Chanel coin.
No.
So CC doesn't mean Chanel, but mintage and not just age, like you said early in the show. Age is not, it's relevant, but only to a certain extent. Most of it comes down to the number that were minted, where it was minted,
Condition of the
condition of the notes. So notes like coinage
Yep.
have to be treated properly.
Oh, yeah.
So condition.
Highly collectible, though.
Highly
I would
collectible.
actually say some paper money. I mean, some of it's through the roof how collectible it is.
Really?
Yeah.
What are some of the most valuable paper notes?
I mean, there's a $1 bill from 1911 that sold for like $5,000. I mean, just $5,000. But there's a lot of them from the early 1800s.
Right. Well, same way with just a simple copper penny. It was 1909, I think, was the first copper. If you can find a 1909 copper penny.
You got to find the
VD,
SVDB
yeah.
from the San Francisco Mint. There's a lot of them that just say VDB. They're only worth $1 or $2.
Okay.
It's got to have for that San Francisco Mint on it. And then it's,
Is that SVD?
oh, that starts off at like $500 now. That's a good one. Yeah.
Okay, well, that's interesting.
$500 for a penny. Yeah, that is interesting.
But back to the paper money, you have collectors on your end that collect.
Those $1,000, we'll talk about it. The collectible ones, the $1,000 bills are very collectible.
Right.
So in the 30s, they made a $1,000 note. The U.S. Treasury did.
Really?
And then they made them for a while. $500 notes up through the 80s.
I've seen the 500.
Yeah, but thousands are very collectible. And those are kind of more modern.
Okay.
But
Okay.
for sure.
But you've got people that collect different eras, like maybe continental notes, fractionals.
Fractionals. There's some fractionals. Yeah.
Continentals.
Confederate notes.
Confederate notes.
Those can be good.
Now, you got to be careful with things like Confederate
Well,
notes.
yeah, there are, because all the banks issued their own notes. That's the problem. So you're going to find a lot of rare notes. They'd be like, wow, look at this. I've never seen anything like it. Bank of Virginia.
Yeah.
Could be worth $5.
Right.
All these, there wasn't a Federal Reserve System back then.
Yeah.
So every bank issued their own currency.
You talk about something that would give you, as a great history lesson. Learn about coinage and currency, and from the evolution of coinage and currency in the United States of America. And you'll see how, at the beginning of the 13 colonies, all the way up to present day, how things have
No, isn't it wild?
changed.
I mean, even before that, when it was the British, ruled us.
Yeah.
The
The pounds and the sterling.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's amazing.
yeah.
So, but what I was going to say is,
How it evolved.
you
Now it's
have-
turning into cryptocurrency. It's just bizarre.
be, hopefully you got out of cryptocurrency
Well,
before within the
the
last
U.S.
couple of months.
Federal Reserve's turning that. The U.S. There's gonna be a federal Fed coin.
Is it?
Yeah,
There's going to be a Fed
I think
coin.
they've been working on it they just can't figure out how to do it.
Okay.
They haven't been able to. Yeah, and then there's a world one too. They've been working on.
Is that going to be based
It's
on
not it's going to be based on.
crypto?
It's going to be a crypto. Yeah, it's going to still be controlled by the Federal Reserve, I'm guessing.
Right.
But they won't be printing the money. It'll just be digital. And then you won't be able. They'll have much more control
Right.
over everything. That's why they want to do it. It's not a great thing. They're doing it to
They're
rein in.
trying to control it.
They'll never be able to cheat a tax seller ever again.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Well-
Everything will be recorded.
At the beginning of crypto, it was really used kind of in a black market, wasn't it? I mean,
It was a means to exchange it kind of, I don't think it started that way,
Yeah.
but then it started becoming useful to do things anonymously.
Right.
So you don't have to have people know all your business of what you're
Right.
doing here and there.
Well, and that means the
And
government.
that's the government. They have agencies for everything.
Well,
Even
they-
the FCC.
Sure.
I mean, they want to overreach on your speech.
Sure.
You
Well,
know.
well, you look at the government, they were looking at currency, and they say, here's a market, a crypto market's trillions and trillions of dollars. We better get our hands on that. We better at least
What's the
regulate it
technology is what
so
they
we can
want to
get
get
our-
their hands on.
so they can
The
tax you.
blockchain, yeah, of course.
They can
But
get
it's
a
a
piece of
very
it.
efficient way to do it. It really is.
Yeah,
Yeah, because people can counterfeit dollars.
Sure.
That's a big problem.
right.
I mean, you can't do that with crypto.
That's interesting.
There's a lot of, it makes the federal government, they have a lot of incentives to put us on a crypto.
Right.
I don't want us to, but it's going that way. Credit cards were like the first step.
Yeah.
Everyone just uses credit cards or debit cards, slowly moving from cash. Eventually, it's just customers are going to come in with gold and I'll transfer them with the press of a button.
Right.
It'll just be whoop, whoop,
Well,
which is fine. It's
Yeah.
just going to be different,
Right.
but it's going to come with a whole nother level of control from the man above. That's
in an odd way, it's sort of like what we've talked about in past shows, and you've recommended to people that they have a certain amount of silver and gold in their homes or in their bank accounts or whatever, in their bank boxes, so it's something you can hold, because eventually if we have an issue, you want to have
oh, yeah.
real
Something
silver,
in your hand
real
you can
gold.
trade for,
Right.
and it get maybe a gallon of gas or some
Right.
food, because
Yeah.
you might not be able to get to an ATM.
And you've recommended that to a lot of your customers, and you have customers that are
that's-
actually looking for those things,
Oh, for sure.
that they want that silver, they want that gold.
Well, they're actively getting their money because every year, if you have a $100 bill, there's a deflation even before all this is happening of about 1 or 2 or 3% a year. So if you have a $100 bill sitting there, it becomes worth $97. Now people aren't able to conceptualize that. Like, how does that happen? When it's still a $100 bill. Well, prices go up and inflation. That's how it happens. It's not like they ripped the dollar into 97 cents.
Right.
It just becomes less powerful to use.
Yes.
So if gold or silver goes up every year slowly, but yes, it does go up, then why would you hold a $100 bill when you can hold $100 in silver?
Yeah,
If you're just going to put it in a checking account.
right.
Now, if you're going to put it in stocks, then you got all these other things to weigh. But if you're just going straight dollar for precious metal, that's why dollars were made out of precious metals up until 1970 or 1969.
Right.
The U.S. actually put them in there. So if they're putting it in their money, they know there must be some smart reason to do it. So why wouldn't the person put their dollars into that silver and gold?
I've noticed
know what I'm saying?
in the last year, while we've had this inflation rate, that gold and silver has fluctuated just a little bit, but nothing like the stock
No,
market.
not at all.
So it's still a really good tangible asset to have.
Yeah, exactly. It's just kind of a security blanket, and it'll always be there for you.
Yeah.
You're not going to get rich off it. It's not like all of a sudden silver's going to be worth $10,000 an ounce, like Bitcoin.
Right.
But it could be worth 100 one day or 50.
So for those of you listening, if you've got coin collections and you've got pre-1964 silver coins, for instance, bring them to Scott. He has a market. He has people that want those coins, and he'll pay you top dollar for your coinage, whether it's silver or gold. He'll pay you right there on the spot, cash check, bank
money,
transfer,
whatever you want.
whatever you
Crypto,
want, whatever floats your boat.
pennies.
Yeah, there you go.
I have all those wheat pennies I need to get rid of.
Tons. You got a ton, I think.
Yeah.
2,000 pounds. Would anyone like 2,000 pounds of wheat pennies?
Yeah. I sell them in 64-pound boxes.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
amazing.
Postman probably does not like me.
No, I'm sure that, yeah.
He's had to deliver quite a few of them. Or she.
Well, so if you've got those things, this is part of what he does. At Parkshore Coins and Collectibles, he does buy, but he will also sell.
Yep.
So if you're interested
For
in,
sure, coins and bullion.
sure, if you want to start, collecting to get ahead of inflation, that may be a good way to do it. It's a good hedge on inflation and a good
Yeah.
way to bank some money, put it away. You can stack silver and keep it at home. You can stack gold. Now remember, gold doesn't take up as much room as far as valuation versus silver.
That's right.
So you can come in every month and buy a gold coin.
That's right. A 1/10
got some
ounce,
regulars that do
1/10
that.
ounce. Yeah.
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 They want that. They want, whether it's Krugerrands, Eagles, whatever you've got out
Regulars,
there.
whatever they can get their hands on.
And some are worth more than others. The Canadians, the European monies.
The Maple Leaf's very
Maple Leaf.
high demand.
The British,
Yep.
the British silver.
Britannia.
And yeah, as a matter of fact, last show, I think it was last week, we talked about the British
Oh, yeah,
silver
we brought 'em
versus
all
the
in.
American 9999%
Yeah.
versus 999.
Yeah, US is 999. Canada is 9999. 49s.
49s. And Britain, I think it's 49s.
I think they're 3.
Is a Krugerrand, silver Krugerrand 49s?
Krugerrand, I believe 92%
92%.
gold.
Okay.
Yeah. Silver's 100%.
Okay.
49s for the silver,
49s.
but the gold, I believe, is made out of 22 karat.
Right. Okay. Okay.
But there's an ounce of gold there, so
Yes.
it'll be over 31 grams,
Right.
31.3 grams.
And there's a Troy ounce grams. Right.
Yeah, 1 troy ounce is 31.3 grams.
Right.
So the coin will probably weigh like 33 or
Right.
33.5.
Now, for our listeners that need to understand this, there's a difference between a troy ounce gram or troy ounce and a regular ounce.
Oh yeah.
A regular ounce has what, 28 grams?
28.3 grams. Yep.
And a troy ounce has 31.
And most people operate on the 28.3. So they bring it in, they say, well, I know I have this and this, this many ounces.
Yeah.
They're already off 10%.
Right.
That's a huge number when
That's
you're
right.
dealing with small margins.
That's right.
So at least have that part down,
Yes.
And
that's how we're going to end this show. Ian's whispering in my ear through the headset that it's time to wrap it up. If you want a true valuation,
that was quick.
give Scott a call, 239-961-0816
Parkshore Coin.
or parkshorecoin.com. This has been the Parkshore Coin and Collectibles Hour. And as Scott always likes to say at the end of the show, if you're on the golf course,
Hit them straight.
and if you're out in the Gulf fishing,
That's right. Put some sunscreen on.
Don't
right?
get
Don't
burned.
get lost. Yeah.
don't get lost, navigate well, and be back with us next Saturday.
See you next week.